The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep them away.
It's not even funny.
The American presidential election is now just 2 weeks.
Okay. Seriously, Piers Morgan has racked in millions from doing all this one-sided debate. He always claimed not to have a side. But all of you who are going to probably see this, listen to the way he's going to introduce this very video, and then you decide if he truly hasn't got a side in this election. What I mean is, he is 100% hoping and wishing that his friend, the donor, be elected again the second time.
Weeks away, and both candidates are staging photo opportunities at iconic emblems of the American character. Kamala Harris went to a Baptist church. The Donald, meanwhile, went to McDonald's.
Mr. President, you actually have worked at McDonald's now versus...
Now I have worked at McDonald's. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala.
Are you going to put this on your resume?
I never worked here.
Why would she lie about something like that? Will be put on your resume.
I worked at McDonald's.
Well, Harris claims to have worked beneath the Golden Arches as part of her now fabled rags to riches story, but there's no actual independent corroboration of that claim, and Trump says she's made it up. Well, no matter who's right on the details of her McDonald's resume, there's no denying which of the two candidates is currently loving it. Trump has given a barrage of interviews to friendly media and podcasts over the past week and seems to be genuinely enjoying the last stage of his race. Harris has suddenly begun taking big swings, including this testy interview with the formidable Bret Baier on Fox News.
Listen, this is what I'm saying about Piers Morgan. That interview, even Bret Baier came out and apologized for something that he did wrong. He even said that VP Harris came with an agenda and she might have got the agenda done. He, from his body language, from him coming out to apologize, means that VP Harris played him like a fiddle, just like he played Donald Trump. And here is this guy trying to make it seem as if that was any tough interview for Kamala Harris.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have.
Yeah, but do you, just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country.
You don't need to be Nostradamus to work out what this shows us about how the campaign.
So he's just cherry-picked one of that. And that one probably is saying, I don't even know why. What does that say? Does that really say anything? Or because she didn't give any number, that means it says something. What does that say?
Campaigns are feeling at the moment. Harris is trending downwards, albeit it's still within a margin of error. She's attempting the difficult persuasion work it dodged in the prolonged vibes and joy phrase of her campaign. Trump, meanwhile, is focusing on turning out his base. He thinks if he can persuade his supporters to go to the polls.
The thing is, his base is not going to win the election for him. His base is not going to win the election for him. If his base is always going to stay with him. But what he needs in order to win this election are the people, the so-called people in the middle. Those people who tend to either vote that way or this way. Those are the people that he has to convince, not his base. If his base, only his base, vote for him, he's not going to win. He's not going to win. So I don't know. He keeps saying, I don't have a side, I don't have a side. This clearly shows he has got a side. He hasn't even said anything about Trump calling Americans enemy of the people. He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about Trump talking about somebody's kahunas, about somebody's junk. He didn't say that.
And he'll win. And in 14 days, well, we'll find out if the commander-in-chief has pulled off a truly supersized comeback. Joining me to debate who's in pole position, host of the Rubin Report, Dave Rubin. Larry Elder, the former presidential candidate, the host of the Larry Elder Show. Democrat strategist, Amicia Cross. And pro-Harris influencer Luke Beasley. Welcome to all of you. Dave Rubin, I thought this McDonald's stunt by Trump was an absolute slam dunk. In fact, I called it in a New York Post column I found today. Probably the best political stunt I've ever seen. On two levels, I argued. One is that it highlighted this claim by Kamala Harris to have worked at McDonald's as a summer job when there's zero evidence other than from her mouth that that's ever happened. No one's ever come forward to say, I work with her, which is just very odd. She didn't mention it in her memoir. She didn't put it on her resume about 3 years later when she was applying for jobs. All very strange. It doesn't mean she's lying, but it's very strange. But secondly, what Trump did by just going to McDonald's and getting...
So it doesn't mean that she's lying, but it's all very strange. Why is it strange? You clearly say it doesn't mean she's lying. And you're saying it's all very strange. What has that even got to do? She was... let's just watch this.
There for the day, albeit it was all staged, obviously. He was attaching himself to probably the most inclusive American iconic company imaginable. There are 13,500 McDonald's in America alone. I think I read that 7.5% of the population of the United States have a McDonald's meal once a year, at least, which is a staggering statistic. And it's a real piece of Americana. It represents entrepreneurism in the sense that, everyone can afford a McDonald's pretty much. And pretty much everyone has a shot if they want it, of running a McDonald's franchise. So it's a kind of brilliant place for Trump to attach himself to. And I just thought his whole interaction with the staff, with the customers and so on, was a brilliant, brilliant stunt. What did you think?
Oh, it was a win across the board in a way that Donald Trump only can get those wins. I mean, that moment where the employee says, I'm ordinary, and he said...
Donald Trump has not won anything. So what win is this guy talking about? By the way, this is one of the guys who was paid by Russian company to peddle lies. And Piers Morgan brings him to come and peddle more lies. These are one of the guys. The first question Piers Morgan should have been asking him was, did you know that you were being paid by the Russians? But he's not going to ask him.
No, you're not ordinary. That's Trump being Trump. I mean, not only is McDonald's just a win because everybody's had it and it's going to trigger a certain amount of the MSNBC types because he actually didn't technically get a job and it's a stunt. What it shows is that he really is the man of the people. And it is bizarre, I would say, that an orange man with crazy hair who's a billionaire is more authentic and more real and more of a man of the people than any of the people on the other side who purport to be for the people but actually are the elite. So this is only a win. You could see the absolute joy of all of the people who were showing up at the line, the drive-through line. You could see the joy of the employees, and you could see the joy in Trump. Trump loves to work more than anything else. Trump loves work. He loves success. I genuinely think he liked doing that, and somehow they got an apron that...
Do these people really believe some of this shit they say? Do they really believe that Trump likes to work? Do they really believe that Trump is a man of the people? Do they really believe this crap? When they say this all the time, do they?
That fit perfectly, and it worked with his red tie, and his hair is as golden as the French fries. I think this thing was just a win and a win and a win.
Yeah, and actually you can tell how big a win it was just by how much whining is going on from the Dems afterwards. Amisha,
exactly.
You were laughing at some of Dave's claims there. Did you not embrace the full joy of the Donald at McDonald's?
No, absolutely not. I don't think that a guy who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth who chooses a day to cosplay as a McDonald's employee is something we should be celebrating. These are people who've been fighting to have minimum wage. These are people who are fighting to have minimum wage increases, which the Republican Party and Donald Trump is against. This is not a cosplay moment. I didn't see this as any different than I saw it as when Gwyneth Paltrow, the famous actress, decided she was going to go on food stamps for a week. It is a ploy, and in many cases, it's making fun of the very individuals who have to live off of these minimum wages every day. Who cannot afford childcare, who cannot afford childcare, who cannot afford cars in many cases, who are having a hard time paying their rent.
Hang on.
Can I finish?
Well, I want to make the point about
because I was making a point. At the end of the day, we're talking about someone who does not agree with raising minimum wage. We're talking about a party that has not supported reducing child poverty rates. They did not support extended child tax credits. This is a party that does not care about not only sustaining the middle class, but obviously people who are earning poverty wages. So yes, he went in, he donned a cape, he donned an apron, and now he is supposed to be someone who people who are, you know, living paycheck to paycheck are supposed to be able to relate to.
You might be I think you're overthinking this. You remind me a little bit of Michael Bloomberg, who was sat in front of Trump at the Al Smith dinner the other day, and for 28 minutes managed not to crack any facial expression whatsoever, even as Trump was rattling off a series of indisputably hilarious zingers. And I think it takes a lot of real effort to refuse.
He didn't find them funny.
Well, it just makes me laugh that Kamala Harris is all about finding the joy in life. There you've got Trump cracking funny jokes, and no one on your side wants to laugh. And we'll come to that in a bit.
I come from a family where I was raised on food stamps. I come from a family where people work minimum wage jobs. They don't get to don for an hour or so to get photo ops and walk away. That's not cool.
I'm just saying, if you can't watch Donald Trump frying fries in a McDonald's when he's never been seen cooking a thing in his entire life and then serving it to punters as they turn up in cars, if you can't crack a smile and feel what Kamala would describe as the joy of that moment, there's something very humorous about you, isn't there?
Yeah, it's MAGA that keeps getting upset.
I'm thankful that McDonald's hires felons because they do that in reality as well.
Okay, let me bring in Luke. You want to get in?
Yeah. Well, I will say that MAGA has been repeatedly expressing that they're upset that Kamala is having these fun moments. Oh, she's laughing. We are to stop dancing. There's serious problems. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there. But I will say this McDonald's thing is the perfect example of how Trump gets away with what he does, because a bunch of people in the media play right into what he's doing, which I agree. A fun little photo op at McDonald's. A lot of people are going to find that likable, ignoring the actual substance, which is he gets asked about the minimum wage. He can't answer it because on policy, he's a failure. So he has to rely on these sorts of stunts to get people to like him. And the media find it so fascinating. So they forget days before the election what really matters.
But to be clear, you just said you found him likable.
I don't find him super likable, but I understand why a photo shoot like this appeals to people. That's exactly what he's trying to do.
That's what he said.
The days before an election, he's promising to go after his political enemies with this enemies from within sort of comment. Distract from the fact that he's the most anti-democratic presidential candidate we've seen in
let me bring in
American politics. Distract from the fact that hundreds of economists are saying that Trump's plan would harm the economy.
Okay, let me bring in Larry. Larry, your response to this.
Well, you're talking to somebody whose father here used to clean toilets for a living, save his nickels and dimes, and started a cafe where he sold hamburgers. So I was enjoying the moment. Donald Trump is relatable. He's likable. Regular people who eat at McDonald's liked him. And I think that's why people on the left are so upset. I do find it interesting, though, that Kamala Harris has gotten a pass for saying she's worked at McDonald's, and Donald Trump is being slammed for doubting it. I saw a headline that said Donald Trump, without evidence, says
no evidence she worked
at McDonald's.
Trump hasn't demonstrated in any way whatsoever. Trump has not brought forward any evidence to refute. No, she doesn't have to go back. I don't have proof of every job I worked. What was it, in high school or college? And she's not going to waste time right before.
But Luke, you don't think it's odd? This
is what Trump gets to do, though. This is what Trump gets to do, though. He gets to basically lie about something.
Luke, do you not think it's strange that she's been so specific? She's named the branch that she worked at. She's named the summer that she worked there, 1983. And she said she was working on the ice cream stand, the French fry stand, on reception. She was there for weeks on end throughout one summer. And not a single human being that came across her, either working with her or a customer or anything, has
I haven't seen a person come out and say,
hang on, has any memory of this person who is now potentially about to become president of the United States. I'm just smelling a rat here, and it's not a very...
Yeah, but if she hasn't given any proof that she worked in the place that she said she worked in, the place still exists, right? So you go there and find out, has anybody come out of that place to say that she is lying? That was not an important job, maybe. She did not need to put that in her resume. So so many of us have done some shitty jobs. I'm not going to put some of those jobs in my resume. Even Pierce is not going to do that, though he's never had one of those shitty jobs. Has anybody come out of that said McDonald, if it still exists, to dispute the fact that she said she worked there in the summer, in whatever year that she did? Nobody has. Nobody.
Very pleasant smelling
do you remember the names and the faces of people who have served you at McDonald's?
I can tell you, if I was running for British Prime Minister,
especially from 30 plus years ago.
Here's my response. If I was running for British Prime Minister right now, I can guarantee I did some terrible jobs in my time. I wish I'd been at McDonald's. It sounds a great gig, but I did some awful stuff. I shoveled mushroom manure one summer. All the people that did it with me would remember, and they would all pop up and they'd talk about it. I mean, Dave Rubin, it just stretches credulity that here we are. She's been saying this for several years now. Nobody can remember her ever being at McDonald's, Dave.
Well, sure, but why don't we do something a little more substantive, whether than she's lying or not about her resume? I mean, this is also a woman who's basically being installed as president as far as the Democrats are concerned, so they're not that concerned with resumes. What I'd rather talk about for a moment, since two of the guests mentioned minimum wage, is that the market should dictate what minimum wage is. If you want to artificially tell McDonald's how much they have to pay people, so it should be $25 an hour, $30 an hour, whatever you want to decide it should be, well, congratulations. McDonald's will then bring in iPads, which they are doing at airports, and they're doing at restaurants all over the country right now, and then nobody will have a job. So the market dictates that. That's not Donald Trump being mean. That's not him hating people from lower economic classes or anything else. But certain jobs, only the market dictates how much they're worth. So unless you want 15 iPads in every McDonald's and one guy who comes in once a month who will probably be paid $20 an hour to repair those iPads or get the grease off them, you're going to fire an awful lot of people by telling them.
What? What is he talking about? So they'll bring iPads to serve food in McDonald's. iPads will make the burgers. iPads will serve customers. That doesn't make sense. What? Wait. iPads. They have iPads, right? When you go to McDonald's, you have machines where you buy. But people have to actually serve you the food. People have to give you the drinks. People have to put your food in the bags and actually hand it up to you. So what are they used with iPads? Russian influencer, Dave Rubin. iPads will not serve people food.
Government that it should tell stores how much they should pay their employees.
Okay,
let's talk about substance now. I love this conversation.
Hang on.
Let's talk about minimum wage.
Hang on. Please don't all talk until I ask you. It's just easier if I manage it. I want to switch gears to Kamala's appearance on Fox News. And Amisha, I'll start with you. Let's take a little look. This was SNL mocking that interview. Let's take a look.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Now, when I interviewed President Trump, my first question was, what do you think is the most important issue facing our nation? So my first question for you is, give me the exact number of murderers you let loose in this country.
Brett, I'm glad you brought up the topic of immigration.
1 million, 2 million?
Okay. The first thing we did in office was to introduce a bill.
10 million, give me a number.
Brett, we came up with a bipartisan
But you didn't have a number, though.
May I please finish?
I'm asking you to.
Well, then you have to listen.
Well, I can't because I'm talking.
Now, Misha, aside from the strange spectacle of Alec Baldwin making his comeback, which I think feels a little too soon, perhaps, the nature of her going on Fox News, I thought it was quite a ballsy move to do it. I've got to be reasonable credit to her for going on there. It got a massive audience, the biggest audience of any interview in the whole presidential race. Do you think it, in the end, though, was a good or not so good move for her?
She came to do exactly what she did. I think that pointing out Donald Trump's instigations of wanting to eradicate certain news networks, calling out individuals who he wanted to issue prosecutions of, who have spoken out against him or who didn't support him. She went on to do what she needed to do. And I think that in terms of going on Fox, yes, it has a big audience, but she wasn't necessarily trying to draw in an audience that is largely Trump and MAGA supporters. People know what Fox News is, as much as she was going into the house that Donald Trump built in many ways, the same place that has been sued multi-million dollars over for lying about election fraud in the 2020 election, and she shook up their house. That's what she intended to do during this campaign, and then she walked off. And I think that she did a very strong job of it. It was not going to be a friendly space. She knew that going in. That just is what it is. This was the first time she'd sat down with Fox during this entire cycle. And I think that it made a difference because it showcased that she wasn't afraid to have the conversation, but also that she walked away, just rose like the phoenix, as strong as she was when she walked in.
All right, Larry, I certainly didn't think she had a stunning success. I don't think it was an abject failure either, but CNN Van Jones, who's obviously very pro-Kamala, said the problem with it was she's still in persuasion mode when she should be in turnout mode. I thought that was an interesting verdict on that.
Well, I agree with her. The point was for her to go on Fox News, stand up, show she wasn't afraid, show she had the stones to go to Fox News. But the problem is much more fundamental. Are you better off now than you were 3.5, 4 years ago? The average family of four is spending $1,200 a month more for the same goods and services as that family spent 3.5, 4 years ago. We're paying 50% more for gas than we were 3.5, 4 years ago. That's the problem, and that is why I believe she's going to lose.
Okay,
she's going to lose.
Why?
Yeah. What is this bizarre thing that MAGA is trying to force onto Americans, this collective amnesia? We were in the middle of the pandemic 4 years ago. Yes, we're better off. And the very problems that people will cite to argue against the economic success of Biden-Harris are the numbers that are a direct outcome. Be just a little bit honest for a moment, Dave and Larry, are a direct outcome of pandemic conditions.
A little bit honest.
If you can't accept that Trump was making deals with Saudi Arabia and Russia to cut oil production, that caused the spike going into Biden-Harris. If you can't accept that Trump gave to Biden a crime spike, an economic collapse, a public health disaster, then you're not critically engaging with the last few years. So yes, we're better off because we got out of a crisis better than any other country. Listen, Dave.
Okay, Dave Rubin
came out of a crisis.
All right, let Dave respond to that.
Well, there's so much there. I mean, first off, it was the Democrats, once Biden took over, who made the pandemic situation much, much, much worse with mandates and forcing people out of work and forcing nurses out of work and everything else. But let's put that aside because that's years ago. How about we just deal with the last, say, 2 years, where they printed a relentless amount of money. And if you know anything about economics, if you ever did economics 101 in college, if you print money, then it is going to cause inflation. Your dollar will be worth less. And that's why every single person watching this in the United States of America.
Inflation has been a worldwide thing. It's not only in America, so that point doesn't make any sense.
Knows that when they walk into whatever grocery store they go to, whether it's to buy a dozen eggs or it's a pound of beef or bread, it is significantly higher. And that is not. And Kamala's answer for that is
cost of anybody in the
control. She wants more governmental control over the economy.
No, she wants price gouging to end
over your lives.
Quickly, just please answer this for me then. Why is it that our economy, just by the objective metrics we use to measure economic performance, came out of the pandemic under Biden-Harris way stronger than our wealthy economy counterparts. And then inflation, we got it down way faster. This was a global phenomenon because of a global crisis that Trump mismanaged, thus exacerbated. And you exploit the painful facts of that moment. You exploit the painful facts of that moment for political purposes, when even on your point about printing money, sure, absolutely the case that that'll cause inflation or contribute to it. So then what do you say about as Trump was leaving office, him dumping, he added twice that of Biden to the debt, even if you exclude the pandemic, by the way, but especially including it. And you want to push it all into Biden-Harris. You want to exclude from Trump's record the pandemic era, but look, here's the problem. Here's
the problem. You know, I'm not disputing some of what you said there. What I would dispute, though, is you're not really countering. Well, you're not really countering what Dave's central point is, which is most Americans, if not all Americans, if they think about what their weekly shop costs them today and compare it to.
Piers Morgan always say he hasn't got a side. He hasn't got a side, but when he has this panel of people talking, he hammers the Democrat. Everything is cute. His arguments are just on one side. He forgets all about Donald Trump. Why? Because he says we all know who Donald Trump is. He's a dumb ass. So he expects the other side to be much more better, because he said already that we all know Donald Trump is a dum-dum. So there's no point, because everything he does we know is dumb. So you expect the other side to come in strong. Yeah, I'll give you that.
The first few weeks and months of the Biden-Harris administration, it is indisputably a lot more expensive. And in the end, I think if they lose the election, if Kamala Harris doesn't win and Trump wins, I suspect, as always, it will be that economic reality, which is not to say the American economy is not performing well compared to many other countries. It is. You are the #1 superpower in the world. But it doesn't change the fact that the cost of living for most Americans has gone through the roof in the last 3.5 years. It just has.
Totally, which is why it's a crying shame that people like Larry and people like Dave choose to mislead people about the cause of that, because they won't even engage with the
you don't want to put any blame onto your side. And that's fine.
Sure,
they've been in charge.
As long as we're
your side have been in charge.
Considering the full context of it.
You can't keep blaming Trump for everything that happens.
It's not blaming Trump. It's considering
let me bring in Larry. Larry, it seems to me that one of the default positions of Kamala Harris right now, and the Democrats generally, is when in doubt, blame everything on Trump. Even the economic record of your own administration is all Trump's fault. Everything is Trump, Trump, Trump. Right. And I actually think that's a mistake. I actually think they'd be much better off presenting a genuine plan.
How many days have we got to the election? We've got less than, I think, 20 days. Today is the 22nd. So we've got 13 days, 12 days to the election. And to be honest, it's going to be interesting when we get the result of this election. It's going to be really, really interesting on both sides.
For what they're going to do under a Kamala Harris first term as president, than by just blaming everything on the boogeyman, Trump.
Agreed.
So are we ignoring her entire
He directed this towards me, so may I respond?
Yes.
79% of people, according to a Marquette poll, believe we are on the wrong track. Kamala Harris says, I was in the room for every major decision that Joe Biden made. Joe Biden said, we're singing from the same song sheet. When she was asked, Kamala Harris, whether there's anything that she would have done differently, she said, nothing that comes to mind right now. So she is stuck right there with that. That's the problem. Let me just say one thing before we leave this topic about the minimum wage. I'm in California. We just jacked up the minimum wage from $16 to $20 an hour. And those of us who oppose that said that it's going to cost jobs. The day the bill was signed, even before it went into effect, 1,200 drivers for Pizza Hut were laid off. Since then, 10,500 fast food workers have lost their jobs, all because of this. The very people that people on the left purport to care about, little people that work at McDonald's, lost their jobs. Dave Rubin is right. The private sector should determine the price of labor. When you interfere with that, you're going to have all sorts of problems, including a greater incentive to automate.
Okay, Amisha, I want to bring in a new theme. I want to play an ad. It's a Kamala age ad. Let's take a look at this.
A Trump advisor told producers that Trump was exhausted and refusing interviews.
He would be the oldest president ever inaugurated if he wins in November.
He will not agree to a second presidential debate.
The former president was swaying and asked to play songs for about 40 minutes.
Donald Trump's public appearances have deteriorated.
The stomach is speaking. Many Azerations.
I mean, the trouble with this, Amisha, is I thought that you liberals were the most tolerant people on earth, and yet here you are being openly ageist, right? Why do you hate old people so much that you're now mocking and denigrating poor Donald for being 78? Do you want every 78-year-old American to feel they're worthless, Amisha?
When I think I heard my name here.
Why are you being ageist, Amisha?
When the Democratic Party is working to reduce the cost of prescription drugs for older people, is working to engage and make sure that
why
people
do an ad that's mocking old people
taking care of their parents.
Why are you mocking people?
No, because you said that Democrats are mocking old people. I'm telling you, with Democratic policies, older people, elderly people are a lot more in a sustainable position than they ever will be with Republicans. With that being said, Donald Trump is getting mocked because he's up there swaying left, right, and sideways. He can't answer questions fundamentally. He's telling us about some approach called the weave when he can't complete sentences and he's all over the place. It is dementia dawn in front of our faces. And if the media could attack Joe Biden relentlessly after that poor debate performance, then why can we not go after Donald Trump when he is no longer agile, when he's no longer making sense, when he's swaying back and forth, and he is out here making himself the father of
Come on, Piers, wait.
What I would say about that is it's pretty bloody rich of the Democrats, frankly, after hiding the state of Joe Biden for 2 years from the American people when he clearly has got onset early dementia. It's pretty rich to play the dementia card at Trump, who basically does a 2-hour rock show most nights on stage. Dave.
I'll go further than that. It's not 2 years that they hid this. It's from before he was president. I was doing videos in 2019 about this. Whether he
so how did he win?
Whatever. It is a fact that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and likely Barack Obama, but undoubtedly Kamala Harris, they got him in an office. I'm talking about Joe Biden, and they basically threatened him with the 25th Amendment, which is why he's not running anymore. We know this is a fact because Joe Biden basically said that on The View, that he still thinks he's capable and that he would have beat Donald Trump. So why are you not running? So they lied about everything. And the absurdity, the patent absurdity that you were going to say that Donald Trump, who basically a day after being shot is back out there, who is doing more interviews, mainstream podcasts, everything else, bouncing around, crazy rallies, as you point out, does 2-hour speeches off the cuff. He answers every question. I don't know if you guys saw it last week at Bloomberg when he did 20 minutes just on tariffs. The guy, whether you like him or not, I get you guys don't like him, but whether you like him or not, you know what the guy thinks. He's more than happy to explain it to you over and over again. The idea that he now is too old after what they just pulled on Biden is so hypocritical. I get politics is all about.
Well, let me play. Okay, hang on, Luke. Hang on. I want to play a test here. I want to play a mashup of Trump's best gags from the Al Smith Catholic dinner night. But I want Amisha and Luke to look at me, and I want you to try and avoid laughing, right? Which is what all Democrats have been trying to do. So you're not allowed to laugh, all right? Let's watch this.
Deal.
It's a true pleasure to be with you this evening. Amazing pleasure. And these days, it's really a pleasure anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance. I didn't like Biden very much, and now I like him quite a bit. You know. And when we hopefully win, dispose of her, I like her a lot, but right now I can't stand her. Believe me, my normal crowd is younger, has a lot more energy, but you have certain advantages too. Like cash, lots of cash. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one. Hey, you think this is easy standing up here and doing this? In front of half a room that hates my guts and the other half loves me?
Well, Amisha, you did better than Luke. Luke, you were trembling there. The bottom lip was going. You couldn't stop yourself. How can you not laugh at that stuff? It's a roast. It's supposed to be a funny roast.
I got you. Wait, I got you. What I was smiling about is I wasn't ready to see on the monitor that you were going to put this up there. So that's funny. But let me clarify. People get in this argument. Does Trump have charisma? Is he funny? Obviously. That's how he built the cult that he built. I'm not concerned with the humor scale of a president. I want someone with character. So I agree. Sometimes he says stuff and I laugh. Sometimes because it's so incoherent and embarrassing that I'm laughing at him. But sometimes he says a joke like some of them there and they're perfectly fine. But that's not what determines a president. And he can both be sort of a caricature and sort of silly while also last time he was president refusing to leave office until his illegal schemes failed. Okay. Last time he was president, mismanaging a global crisis. So can we talk about the substance while I'll acknowledge we don't have to ignore there are moments, mostly because we're laughing at him, where he's inducing laughter.
Yeah, I mean, Larry, I thought that Dave hit onto a really smart thing about this campaign, which is Trump has done a lot of this with very unconventional media, a lot of young podcasts, a lot of stuff you would never expect a presidential candidate to go on.
He goes to podcasts and they laugh at him.
They have millions and millions of younger followers. And if he can galvanize them to come out and vote, he's going to win.
That's right. And let me suggest that the reason Kamala Harris did not go to the dinner is because when you call somebody a fascist and a Nuttler and a Hitler and a threat to our republic, then you sit back and break bread and crack jokes with him. It suggests that you really weren't serious when you said all those mean, nasty things about him. And I think it undermined her argument. That's why I believe she didn't show up. He sits there, he makes fun with Chuck Schumer, talks to Chuck Schumer before and after, makes a joke about Chuck Schumer. Apparently, they're able to get along okay. Then is he really the fascist and the Nazi and the threat to the republic?
Wait, he calls us fascists too. So is he also doing that two-faced thing? Because he laughed along with them and got along with them, even though he says we're going to end the country, and if he doesn't win, the country's going to be finished.
Well, here's what I think, Luke. I do think it was a massive mistake. It was a massive mistake of her not to go to that dinner. It just showed me she can't laugh at herself in public. I just thought it was a ridiculous act of cowardice, frankly. Amisha?
Wait, but Trump's the one who didn't want to go to the correspondence dinner.
Made a darn bit of difference on the campaign trail. I think that individuals, he hasn't been to the White House correspondence dinner in years. He never really went because he didn't want to be made fun of. In Kamala's case, she's been the Democratic nominee since the DNC, which was a little over 2 months ago. At the end of the day, she has a jam-packed calendar of events in the battleground states. She's touching the flesh. She's talking to people where they are. She's making sense for the campaign she has to run, which is the shortest one we've ever seen in American history. She is prioritizing the events that are already in her calendar. And at the end of the day, even Donald Trump knows that the Al Smith dinner is not going to be the make or break dinner of this campaign cycle. It's just not.
Okay, I want to end by asking you all the same question, which is that
he lost 49 states.
Well, the betting markets have hit 59% now, Dave, on Trump prevailing in 2 weeks' time. It's obviously very, very close. We know that. It's going to be very close. But certainly in the swing states, you get a sense of slight momentum Trump's way. And you're certainly seeing Kamala Harris nowhere near doing as well in the swing states as Biden was in 2020. What's your reading overview of where we are with this race?
Well, my take at the moment, Piers, you know my political evolution well. I'm by no means a traditional conservative or even traditional Republican. I wasn't a Republican most of my life. I am since I moved here to Florida a couple of years ago. But what's happening right now with Trump is that he has built a coalition around him with people that were Democrats. Robert F. Kennedy, the name is the standard bearer for the Democrat Party. Tulsi Gabbard, only a few years ago, running for president as a Democrat. Elon Musk, who was a Democrat his entire life. We're getting Hollywood celebrities and rappers, a whole group, and athletes. People who are apolitical, who are no, but it's not about that. It's that sort of dismissiveness that leads people to not liking lefties. What you're seeing right now is a whole bunch of people who love America. They love free speech. They love free enterprise. They love the founding of this country. And they're realizing that Trump now is the vehicle to save this country. It's either that or hyper control over your life in every which way by a woman who I would say is the first artificial intelligence candidate, in that she has been programmed to say things and she will say whatever she's programmed to do. Trump is now showing that America can be wide and celebrated and wonderful and all of the things that made us the dream of the world over. It is so rare and precious what we have in America. And now Trump represents that restoration, which is why he's bringing together, I would say, the widest coalition I have ever seen in my entire life.
Actually, listen, look, hang on, whatever you think about, hang on, please, I'll come to all of you.
NATO was talking about NATO proving themselves
against Trump. Wait your turn, please. Look, I mean, what Dave just said
I'm for America. I'm not for NATO.
What Dave just said is correct in the sense he has got this strangely powerful cross-section of people who were Democrats who have now come round to Trump. I mean, Luke, right now, if I was a Democrat, I am panicking about the state of these swing state polls, and that's where all the action is going to be. Are you panicking?
They got
I'm in a perpetual state of panic this entire time. But I will say, until election day is over, or however, whenever we get the result back, of course I'm going to be panicked because of the stakes of this election, even if she had a large lead in the polls. And so yes, for sure. But I want to make sure we contextualize who Trump is. Dave's talking about this Donald Trump that I'm really not familiar with, because I agree patriotism, loving America, being for America is super important, which is why I can't be a Republican, which is why hundreds of Republicans are coming out, prominent Republicans who worked in other Republican administrations, to say Kamala Harris is the patriotic candidate, given that Trump, like I said last time, violated his oath of office last time. Dave, come on, Dave. Come on, Dave. Dave, I would love, if you want to talk, I do have a question for you.
Is Dick Cheney a good guy or a bad guy? Is Dick Cheney a good guy or a bad guy?
I'm gonna finish my point, whether it's the last thing I do.
Dick Cheney, good guy or bad guy? Come on,
tried to get Pence. Trump tried to get Pence, you remember, to reject the electoral count and make Trump president. Are you saying then, otherwise you have to denounce Trump for trying to do that Kamala Harris could just reject Trump's certification, then I wouldn't have to worry about the election, right?
Well, no, I think Dave made a very good point, which is, do you think it was good for Kamala Harris?
No,
hang on. Do you think it was good was it good for Kamala Harris that Dick Cheney endorsed her? Literally the most hated man for Democrats of the last 30 years.
No, Dick Cheney is not who I'm interested in terms of the endorsement. The Adam Kinzingers, the Liz Cheney, as much as I disagree with her showing, this is the party that understands number one principle has to be dedication to the Constitution. All right, Dave, please, listen.
All right, let me bring in
last point. I'm going to finish this last point. I believe in the founding of our country and how we should abide by the principles laid out there, like our Constitution. Trump's the one who called for the termination of our Constitution. So Dave trying to act like he's the party of pro-American values is absurd.
He did not.
A massive fraud of this type actually allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. What he posts on True Social, you can find the post still up.
All right, let me go to
that person's the pro-American candidate.
Larry, who's going to win the election?
I believe Trump's going to win the election because Kamala Harris is tied to Bidenomics. She said Bidenomics is working. As I said earlier, 79% of Americans believe we're on the wrong track. People are paying way more for the cost of goods and services as they did 4 years ago, more for gas. It is that simple. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? The only people that can say yes are illegal aliens.
Okay, Amisha, final word to you. Who's going to win?
Our nation is hyperpolarized, so this is going to be a really tight election cycle all the way up to November 5th on Election Day. But Kamala Harris has a much stronger ground game, and she's going to win.
I admire the confidence. I don't share it, but I admire it. Thank you to my